This is verse 10 of the 3rd chapter of the Gospel of John, this famous conversation that Jesus has with Nicodemus. Jesus has explained to Nicodemus that it requires a radical renovation, a new birth, as it were, a radical transformation, in order for a person to see the kingdom of God, let alone enter it, that this requires something that is certainly not accomplished by any manipulation of the flesh, but that it is something that takes place as an act of the pneuma, the Spirit which, like the wind, same word in Greek, blows where it wants. So the Spirit of God blows, as it were, where it wants, and the result is a change in a person's heart. Nicodemus is just left in the dust with this kind of conversation. He doesn't know what to make of it. How can these things be? He asks the question, and then Jesus expresses something that appears to be a little astonishment on his own part as he responds in verse 10, apokrythe, from apokrynomai, deponent verb. This is the aorist, third person singular. Jesus answered, kai apen, from lego, I say. This is the second aorist, third person singular. Said auto, to him, dative case, the pronoun in the masculine dative here, singular. Jesus answered and said to him, and now this remarkable statement, su, the singular pronoun, second person, you, singular, you are, again, singular from me, I am. This is you are, ho, didaskalos. Of course, what's interesting is the use of the word ho. You are the teacher. You are the teacher. And then to Israel, of the Israel. This is really quite a statement that Jesus is making. The word Israel is only used by John 4 times in the entire gospel, and each time it does suggest a kind of high dignity. John will refer to the Jews, and that term is used typically to apply to those who are in a leadership position and who very often have malicious designs and whose motives are at best very, very doubtful. But when John puts the word Israel into the text, it has a different sense to it. And so Jesus actually is giving Nicodemus here quite a compliment, and yet it's a rather left-handed compliment, because you are the teacher of the Israel, elevating both of those terms to a very high status. Kai tauta, demonstrative pronoun, neuter, plural, and these things, not genoskes. You are not familiar with them, second person singular once again. Jesus says, you are the teacher of the Israel, and yet you do not know these things. What exactly is implied by saying Nicodemus is the teacher in Israel has remained a matter of discussion. Some suggest that maybe it meant that Nicodemus was actually the chair of the Sanhedrin. That's a possibility. He may have had a distinct role as the premier teacher of the Sanhedrin. That's also a possibility. Or it may be that Jesus is simply referring to the fact that Nicodemus has come, in a sense, in a representative capacity on behalf of some from the Sanhedrin, and so you're the teacher, as it were, appointed ad hoc for this particular responsibility. It remains an open question. I rather incline to the view that Nicodemus was regarded as the premier teacher at that time in Israel, and that for that reason, Jesus has some astonishment that he doesn't understand these things. How could Nicodemus have understood anything regarding the idea of a new birth? Well, it's all through the Old Testament. We hear of God giving a new heart to people. He gave a new heart to Saul, to David. We hear in Ezekiel of God replacing a heart of stone with a heart of flesh. We hear of people being circumcised in their heart, and so on. That kind of nomenclature in the Old Testament would certainly be sufficient to give a kind of background by which Nicodemus would be able to make sense out of a statement such as the one that Jesus had made to him.